So if this ammo is any good, oh, look at that, we got a dud. Every 12 months or so, I come out with some sort of PSA about how to set the friction rings up on a Browning A5. Well, this is a Browning design gun, but this is an FN automatic before the distribution rights were worked out for the Browning A5 over in America. So this is an FN automatic. Thing of beauty. Cheek piece, very unique thing. Needs to have the maintenance done on it. Let's do the maintenance, and while we're at it, talk about what a friction brake is and how to keep this little piece of kit from beating the terwillikers out of you. Let's go. Inside the Browning automatic is a recess that, for lack of a better term, I'm going to call it conical. It's a section of a cone. That will push on this bronze braking piece here and attempt to make that compress. And as that compresses, it grabs the tube harder. There's a conical recess in here too, which as it pushes down on it, grabs it harder. On the very early versions of this Browning, this side is flat. On the later versions, there is a wedge shape on both sides. The point being is that in order to set this up for maximum recoil, we take the beveled side and put it in. The brake will go on here. And a point I also want to make is that everybody is used to setting things like this up opposite. These two have to be the same way. If you try to set this up the other way around, if you try to set it up this way, it won't work, because now you have to make everything slide on itself in order to go. So just know that the correct way to set this up is this way. So if we set this in, this and that will attempt to make this brake crush down. So this will slide into this and actually make that crush down. If now, that's maximum braking right there. This is the maximum position right here. Here, let me get this, let me lock that back so we can do this. So as this entire barrel moves to the rear, it's squishing in on this and dragging on the magazine tube. And in fact, you can see the lines here where the braking parts are grabbing. What you don't want to do is get this so hot that pieces of bronze actually weld themselves to this tube. So you need a very, very thin layer of any kind of grease you can get. It seems counterintuitive to put grease on a magazine tube, but trust me, you got to do it. Now, if you wanted less braking, you could take this off and turn this around. That's an intermediate position. You could also take this, put this down here. Always store the friction ring with the gun, even if you're not using it. You could put it all the way down there and you could run the gun this way. Okay? You could run it that way and it has, there's no, right? But if you run a heavy load in a gun setup like this, all of this is going to run into the back of the receiver and you're going to get kind of a ba-dap. You're going to get hit twice. I've covered this before, but you do not need the little written instruction things that are not inside this forend in order to set this gun up the right way. The heavier your loads, the more brakes you need. You're going to have to shoot it once or twice to make sure it works right. But that's what I have to say about that. I like to pull the wood off of A5s first. There's a couple of things here I want you guys to know about. Never take that spring out, or screw. Don't take that screw out. This screw is holding in the mainspring. And if you do manage to get this loose as it's coming up at an angle like this, and if you do manage to get it out and not destroy the screw, you'll pop the mainspring loose, it'll be laying inside, and then there's all kinds of other stuff that you'd have to worry about. Other things I want you to notice here, and I'm going to change the lighting just a little bit, try to get it. What you can't see right there, you see how blue that is? That's what the gun used to look like, and now this gun is silver. We're going to do something about that. Okay, so obviously I have gone in before we've started on all this, and you'll see a little bit of a sheen because I went ahead and I put the angel piss on the screw heads in order to be able to dynamite them loose. So we'll take this lock screw out. And we're not going to disassemble this whole gun on camera. I just want to get the wood off of it because my big one's going to be, I want to talk about how we're going to fix that fore end. All A5s have fore end issues. Let's talk about them. Okay. So we get this out of here. Plus, this gun's been refinished probably twice. The wood is no longer proud here. There's some undercutting going on there, and it's full of some sort of 1940s or 1950s urethane varnish. This whole stock has been refinished multiple times, and we're going to just go ahead and do something with the wood because we need to do it. I don't ordinarily talk about wood refinishing because we don't need to do it very often, but today's the day. All right. If this comes loose, no. Okay. So the back of this receiver here is what we're going to tap this thing on the bench here. So right there. So as I come down on this, the stock will tend to keep going, and it's better than prying on it. Okay, you can see the inside of the stock here has got a lot of greasy, oily, long time ago schmutz. I don't know what that is growing in it. But generally, with the exception of a little bit of copper sulfate, there's some green right there. The gun's not that dirty. It is, however, all kinds of old. So we'll take this apart. It comes apart like a standard A5. There's not that much. This is a really old one, so these are actually screws here, and they're not roll pins. It has the solid lifter, as all of these guns do before 1953. So in order to load it, you have to actually drop the bolt in order to load it. Never drop this without a barrel in it. And all that will come out the back end. So the rear end of the gun's going to get converted like every other gun we've ever done. And so will the barrel. But what we're going to do here is we're going to concentrate on this fore end and this nasty reapplied finish in the lacquer checker in here. So the fore end has got a big old chunk of wood missing here. Let me dial this. There we go. Dial the light down a little bit. There's a big old chunk of wood missing right where my index finger is, and we've got to replace that. And then we're going to have to make sure that we don't screw up the finger grooves while we do it. This isn't exactly one of the first ones that these ever made, because the really, really old ones, this finger groove is closed up right here. So it was a plunge in with an end mill, run across, and then pull back out again. Either way, this needs some help. I want to talk about how to deal with this cross grain situation down here where they always break. Some of these you have holes drilled in them right there, and in fact, another way we know this gun's been worked on is a little bit of acroglass or some kind of epoxy right there. Not a problem. Let's get into that. There are some significant things going on here that I want to show. Big dent right here. There's a grande dent right there that we're going to want to get rid of. This is not the original finish on this gun. I'm just going to tell you that I'm actually in the room with it, and it looks like it's been urethaned over the top of the original finish without having taken care of it. So just know that I'm not destroying some priceless piece of whatever, but they're not making these anymore. Back on the back end of the gun, if you look here, you can see that ordinarily, all of these guns were finished a little bit proud right here, and this thing has been sanded down flat, as I showed you before when it was in. This entire edge, it's been curled. It doesn't show up on camera well. I'm just going to tell you that as the guy in the room, this thing's been screwed with, so I have absolutely no problems taking it back down and finishing it probably the way it was finished in the first place, with a like a layer of 2 or 3 layers of oil covered up by a layer of lacquer. And this thing will look stunning when we get it done, but we're going to do it the way they would have done it originally. So step one, we're going to take a scraper here. And we're going to start scraping this stuff off until we don't want to remove a tremendous amount of wood. All I want to do is get the finish off the top of this. And most importantly, I'm going to roll what I'm doing here up on top because I need to get this area clear for a glue joint. This piece of wood broke a while ago. Let me see if I can really show you what I'm looking at. And the reason why I know that is it's dark, it's schmutzy, and there's a little bit of oil that's soaked into it here. So when we're all done, we're going to wind up straightening this so that it's straight like this. And then we can just lay a piece of wood down on top of it, acroglass it in, and maybe put a reinforcing pin up here so that it won't snap off again. It was an engineering issue, but you know, it was John Browning, so who's going to tell him, right? Oops, let me get that back up. Trying very, very hard not to crush this, but there is a definite line right there. That line right there, I do not want to roll that line. I want that line to stay sharp while I'm pulling this finish off. Hang on a minute. Really trying to not crush this thing if I can get away with it. There we go. I want to preserve that line, so I'm going to leave the light shining on that line. Let me see if we can get over here. There, you see it? Again, I'm in the room with it. I can see it better. We're just going to pull this little bit of finish off the top here so that we're not entombing any of the old finish in the glue joint. I really wish I could get a little better bite on this. There we go. So we've left our line okay right there. So now we're going to go back in now and cut this in such a way that this will stay straight all the way down, straight to there. And you could do this with a rasp. You can do it with a, I don't think you could do it with a plane. And I think I'm going to try to do it with a rasp just because I want this joint to be rough. I want the glue to really have something toothy to grab on. What? He's removing extra wood? Sacrilege! No, it's not. We need to make this joint have a lot of area. So I'm actually bending this whole thing this way just a little bit in order to have more area. And then while we're doing the cut, we're leaving the light over here. And now you can see the very definite difference between light and dark. So I don't even have to measure it. All I have to know is that optically, it looks like I need to pull a little bit more right here. And that optically, I might have to pull a little bit more right here. There we go. I didn't pull out ruler one. I didn't measure anything, and yet I would have to tell you that that is pretty damn straight right there. A little bit more right there. Okay, now the next thing we got to do is we're going to have to degrease this because I'm telling you, the sawdust that's coming off of right here is all kinds of punky. Now, hold that thought. This is a little bit of calcium carbonate that I keep around in the shop in an acetone matrix, okay? So we're just going to slide that on there like this and let this stuff dry. And as it dries, it's going to do a fabulous job of just taking the, right there. It's going to take the oil that's right there and it's going to suck the oil up into this calcium carbonate, and then we're going to be able to brush it off. The trade name for this stuff is whiting, and whiting is a something that's been used by gunsmiths forever. So right now I've got this, and what the acetone does is lets me stick that stuff to the surface. You don't need much of it. And at $26 to the gallon, you don't need much acetone either. As we get this hot, you'll start to see the oil bubble. See the oil bubble in there? Same here, and up on top. Now I've got a very thick layer of it there. You can see the oil bubbling out the end. Right there, you'll see the oil bubbling out of the end. I'm not making this up. There's a lot of oil here. And this is why this failed in the first place. So while we're doing this, you'll start to see this calcium carbonate start to turn brown. Let me get the light burning out the lens. There we go. This calcium carbonate will start to turn brown right here. And that's just us soaking up oil. I'm gonna do that a couple more times and then we'll be right back. Okay, so I've let this soak in a little bit. And now I can just knock this whiting off, and it takes a lot of that oil with it. And it's important that I got rid of that oil just so that the glue will have a little better chance of doing what I want it to do, all right? So in this case, we're just going now to remove finish. We're not trying to remove a whole lot of wood here. We're just trying to get the finish off of this without gouging, without piling. And I'll tell you what, scrapers go a long way here. Okay, so you can see we're pulling this out. The other thing I'm doing while we're doing this is I'm heating up my steaming iron because we're going to go after that big old dent in the back. Okay, so let's review here. We've got a sharp line here. We've got most of the oil out. Down here, we got most of the oil out. I keep feeling like I'm burning this. There we go. We got most of the oil out here, and this is flat. So now we got to look for a straight piece of walnut that we're just going to glue on here. We'd like to have the grain run about the same direction. We'd like it to not stick out too much, but it is what it is. The other deal I'm not doing is I'm not running this joint all the way out. Because if I run this out, this piece of wood will be about that long, and we won't have any triangulation in the glue joint. Here we have one plane, two planes, which gives us the phantom third. I find that repairs with this little line here, you're not going to be able to hide the repair, so you might as well do it in a way that stacks the deck in your favor. That's kind of where I'm at with it. The other thing is this. Let me flip this over here for a second. The only way to properly sand this thing out, you have to damage the check ring a little bit in order to get this finish all the way out. I'm going to damage the check ring, so I'm going to maintain that while you can rechecker a gun without refinishing it, it is not possible to refinish one of these things without recheckering it. I've taken a lot of the diamonds off. In fact, most of these diamonds have come off. There's not a lot here because it was already sanded down once and just urethaned over. So the entire pattern is disappearing, but I'm trying to hold the pattern because when I'm done with this gun, I want to keep things like this. There's like a faux muller here. It's a 3-line border, 1, 2, 3. I'm going to keep that because from 5 feet away, I want this thing to look like a 1907 FN automatic with a suicide safety. I don't want to attract anybody's attention to, hey, what trained rat just refinished that? I've rearranged now, and I've got the light in a place where you can see the size of this bomb crater right here, and I don't know what we're going to do about that bomb crater. We're not going to replace it, and if we go down into the bottom of it, there'll be an enormous scoop here. So I'm not entirely positive, one, the extent of it. So we'll just peel off. Yikes. Look at that. Okay, so kind of deep. Right there. Okay? So we've removed the finish from around it, and we're going to allow the steam to penetrate down in, and we're going to see what we can get out of this thing. Get a tray here for the towel. And we're going to lay a wet towel right over that. Right over that. And I'm going to tell you what, that dent is so big you can damn near see it through the towel. So we're going to just let that get a little bit wet and then lay down on this thing at about 400 degrees. You've seen me do this before, but this steam will penetrate the wood grain and maybe it'll lift it up. Now, there is a lot of wood in this dent that's physically not here. So you really can't put back what isn't here, but it's helping a little bit. But it's hot too. There's a lot of latent heat. There's a lot of latent heat in this steam, so don't get near the steam. It will burn you. Bear in mind, once you commit to steaming, you're going to refinish the gun because the steam will craze all the other finish. It'll turn it white, especially oil finishes. So once you commit to heat and steaming, you're going to refinish the piece you're working on. We'll let that sit there and cook. Yeah. Well, it's getting better, but there's a limit. Now, if I can pick this up a little bit more, I might actually change the outline a little bit. And then when I change the outline, there is a line here, right there. This line, we can actually, that will cause that line to move up a little bit, and we can push the finger groove down just a hair, and you won't be able to tell we did it. And that might be how we're going to get out of this. So what you're doing is you're playing with that third axis. You've got an X and a Y, right? And you're playing with the Z axis in and out. Because the human eyeball is pixelated across its field of vision, but it's a gelatinous mass of googobbery in and out. So while you can tell a number 4 from a number 6 screw out here at arm's length, you can't tell me which finger is closer to me. You really can't tell. So is my middle finger closer? Yeah, but when I hold them like this, you really can't tell. So that's what we're doing, is we're using a function of human vision to help us do gun finishing. God, who knew that all that anatomy stuff in health class in sophomore year was actually going to come back and help you? Yeah. All right, we're there. We're going to go steam a few more dents. So one of the first things I did when we started working on this is I impaled this on I have all these, broom handles and stuff turned. So now I can grab this thing and not worry about crushing it. All right, so let's go here. Let's look at these. There's a couple of nice ones right there. A couple of beautiful ones right there. Oh yeah, see now those, because the wood was still there, that huge dent popped almost all the way back up, that one right there. And this dent, I'm going to work on it a little bit more. But if you tried to just initially just sand down to that, you'd make a mess of it. A regular clothing iron will work. I found this iron at a woodworking, This is for the people that do like they put cloth and fabric on things, and I don't understand exactly what it was they were doing, like bonnets for carriages. I don't know what it was, but they were selling this. This is a big iron. This thing is like 1,700 watts. You plug this thing in, the lights get dim. But boy, I'm gonna tell you what, it steams the living crippy crappy out of stocks. All right, I'm gonna hair dry all this down. We'll set it back up and then we'll scrape it off. They do get dull. So a scraper, true up that edge. True up this edge, true up this edge. So now we've got it, it's fairly square, but there's no lip on it, you see. And then come in at a real high angle like this and just lift an edge here, right? So now I've got an edge sticking up in the air. And then you come back and you iron that down like this. And you can actually see there's like a silver edge here, and now you have a lip on both sides, and this is actually sharp enough. I do not want to pull my finger across it this way. So now when you take that over here to the workpiece, I'm not putting any pressure on this at all. And that knife edge is just cutting this old finish right off like it's not even there. And we're removing finish, but not a whole lot of wood. Because to be really honest, we don't have a lot of wood to give this problem. See? We'll come all the way around and get it. Now notice that in order to get this wood right up here against the checkering, I'm having to damage the checkering pattern. You can't really do this. You can, but you're not going to get it smooth and flat, and you're not going to be able to sand it the right way either. I don't have a monitor set up here, so I don't know if I'm in front of you or not, but that's essentially what I'm doing. So now we get to here, and this curl, this is not a curl of walnut. This is a curl of old finish. See? If we took all that stuff and put it in a pile, it would light on fire and burn like crazy because there's finger oil, gun finish. There's all kinds of crap in that. All right, very good. We'll go around and do the rest of it. So you can see all the impact damage here. Impact. We're ironing all that out. This was just, when they put this second coat of finish over it, I got to tell you, they really kind of gacked it up. So we keep going. And just be sure that when you're using a round tool down in here, when you come up, you don't want to drag this edge over the top. So there's just a lot of this. We'll go around, we'll do this entire fore end, and then we'll get back to it, and we'll have to glue this piece on, which we'll do. Then when this piece has been glued on, we'll go ahead and get it shaped. Then we'll get everything sanded, get a coat of oil on it, and then we'll checker it. So I'm still mixing up some Acraglass here. I had a viewer tell me, hey, stop mixing it on cardboard because it absorbs some of the essential Acraglassness. Okay. We always do everything in black because grain is black. Okay, now we didn't polish this down. We didn't do anything. In fact, we've left it quite rough. We cut this forward edge here. Now, whenever you're going to make two pieces go together, you need to butter both pieces because you want those chemicals that the man was talking about to soak into the wood. I definitely want 100% penetration, so I'm even going to scrub it because this joint needs to have all the strength it can get. So now I've buttered this side, I buttered that side, and you would say, why is it so big? Well, I got to be able to grab it, right? I have to be able to grab it. And we just put that down there. Now the way I've got this thing set in the vise, this piece is level in both dimensions. It will move on you if you're not careful. It'll slide around and skate. So I try to keep the tension like this. Now what's going to happen is we're going to eat lunch and we'll come back and deal with this. I'll put a 200 and something watt light bulb in here. Here, I'll show you. This is a turkey brooder bulb. You put this bad boy in here. Now the problem is this fixture can't take this heat. So hang on a minute, it's about to get really, really, really hot. And we'll put that heat lamp over the top of this. And the heat, since acroglass sets with an exothermic reaction, we're going to allow the heat to speed this up. Throw a little bit of heat input into it. Don't think you can do this with an LED light bulb because all you'll do is make it bright. While that fore-end glue is setting up, I've got the rear end mounted here, the butt mounted in a cradle, and you can see just how bad this finish was. It's all hacked up. But what I did is on the off side, I went ahead and blew in a couple of patterns here, a couple of lines on a checkering pattern because I want to count diamonds. I want to know how many diamonds per inch this is. There's a company out there right now called Mastercarver, mastercarver.com, that has started making the old Denbar gauge again. Ring these guys up. I'm not sponsored, but this is a smart looking gauge made on the correct kind of plastic. They're making it again. Go out there and look at it. All right. Sheldon showed me that. He's my apprentice, and he's the one that told me. So if I line this up, and it's hard to see, it lines up at about 20. 22's a bit fast, and 18's a bit slow. And what I mean by slow is you have 3 lines, but this is faster than this. So you had 3 lines before you had 3 lines here. And in this one, you had 3 lines out here before that one. So we're at 20 lines per inch, and that's what we're going to set my checkering machine at. There is no way that I personally am going to have the time to hand checker this. It's not going to happen. I'm going to sand it down flat, and I'm going to blow a new pattern right over the top of it with my power checkering tool. Not an option that some of you might have. You can checker this. It's just going to take forever. Remember, the longest walk in golf is from the practice tee to the first tee, and the longest line you will ever cut in your life is the first line across a perfectly good gun. All right, let me show you one more thing. This is a standard thread pitch gauge, and I've got it set on 20 threads per inch. And when I went in here to measure, it's exactly right. So you don't need that Mastercarver gauge, but I'm going to tell you it's a shitload more convenient. That's all I have to say about that. So there's a couple things I want to look at here. One of which is the lines that are coming uphill. It doesn't even, this is all a pure fill-in. So these lines are not this line, which is the border. These lines are not that line, which is the border. So what they did was they drew in what they wanted, and then they just cut diamonds to fill the whole thing in. And nowhere in there, these diamonds here run out this way, and these run out this way. So what they did was they came in and they said, okay, 3.5, no. Aspect ratio of 3 to 1. An aspect ratio of 3 to 1, and then they cut what looks like sort of a semi-mullered border here and a double line border all the way around. Every one of these was done by hand, and they were done in a smoking hurry. So don't think that just because it was done 120 years ago that the quality was so much better, because it really wasn't. So now that I know that I've got a 3-to-1 diamond and that I'm on a pure fill in, all I've got to do now is get the borders right and then put diamonds in and fill it in. This is absolutely smooth. There is no definition to this at all. The other reason why I don't want to chase this is because I don't want to follow what might not have been right in the first place. I just don't want to go there. All right, so the next thing we do is sand. We're going to sand this entire stock out. In order to properly sand and get the contours correct, you're going to have to sand over onto the checkering pattern. There's nothing you can do about it. And I know there's a lot of people that will tell me I'm full of it. Well, they're not running a shop and they're not trying to get this done sometime this year. The reason why we scrape, you see that little ball of stuff there that's dug into the sandpaper? If we tried to sand this entire stock down with just sandpaper and not scraping it, it would adulterate multiple sheets of sandpaper. Okay? In order to get a correct sanding finish, though, you have to sand into the lines, and that's what I want to get through, is the fact that if you're really going to refinish the stock and not rechecker it, you didn't refinish it. That's just my opinion. Last thing while we're here before we start cutting diamonds. It's very dark in here because a lot of oil has infiltrated the top of this area, lubricant from the gun that's just running down into it. So we're going to have to deal with a little bit of that too. Okay, we're going to cut a few diamonds here. When you're sanding, be careful. There's an essence of a cheek block here and an essence of a cheek block up there. So all I'm just trying to do is knock this big stuff down here. All right. So we're constrained by the fact that we're going to run out of stock. So we have to use their inside line. 1, 2, 3. This is their inside line. And all I'm going to do is punch their inside line back out. Right there. And this is the border inside of which I'm going to operate. I'm using a 75-degree tool because I'm cutting basically on a knife edge. Down, pick up the inside line. Overran a little bit down here. Pick it back up right there. I don't know if you guys can even see what I'm doing over here. That's fine because Bruno's got the camera where I want it. Okay, we're there. Pick up the inside line here. Coming around this underside curve. Yeah. So what we're doing here is establishing a place where our lines are going to end. And then we're going to we'll pick 2 of the lines out here. And we're going to hand follow 2 of them, and we're going to guide everything else off the lines that were there. But we're going to be set to 20 lines per inch, and we're just going to overcut all of this. All right? So I'm going to pick a line that goes most of the way through the pattern. I'm going to start over here. And I'm just going to pick one of their lines. Now, following their lines, I think it's far harder to chase an old checkering pattern out than it is to just respace a new one with your spacing, because what I'm looking at now is the impression of the bottom of the line. You see the line there, right? So that's one. That's going to be my master going this way. And then I kind of want to be in the middle of the pattern here. So I think the last time I checkered on air was, I think we did that April Fool's thing, wasn't it? Okay, so there's our master lines inside of a fill-in pattern. Okay. If I continue to run theirs, the lines will be all globular because I don't have a fence running directly down inside the bottom of my line, and it'll get weird quick. So what I'm gonna do is set my power checkering head up, and I'm gonna run my power head through here, and I'll show you what that looks like here in just a minute. I'm still on the 20 line per inch. What I could have done was moving this. I could bring the fence in and out and set the distance. I'm running an almond carbide cutter that's only 50 thousandths of an inch wide, which allows me to bring this fence in pretty damn close and cut down to like 26 if I want to. Right now I'm set to 20. Normally these wheels come about 60 thousandths of an inch wide, and about the best you can get out of them is around 22 lines per inch. Beautiful tool. Glad I have it. So here we go. Let me tighten this up just a bit. Ordinarily, I would advocate for doing everything in this direction and then coming back the other way. But in the interest of brevity, I'm going to cut a couple going the other direction so we can get some diamond development here. Now, because we're machine spaced, I'm really positive I have a consistent 20 line per inch spacing going on here. However, if you start to look, we're starting to walk off already. We're actually starting to run out of room. We're a little bit early because the guy that hand spaced this thing did a good job of it, but he hand spaced it, and he hand spaced it in a hurry. And that's okay. So that was pass 1, pass 2. The number 3 will go in this way, knock the bottoms loose. Right? Then I'm going to switch over to a 90-degree tool. The 90-degree tool now is going to take the tops off the diamonds. Okay? You're going to have 5 passes tied up in it, no matter what you do. But there, I'm sorry to keep swapping down like that. There you go. Now, there's high definition diamonds as opposed to, say, what's right up above it, which is not. And I've seen a lot of professionally refinished guns where they didn't go back in and do the checkering because they were afraid of it. And they're charging big money for, albeit, I'll tell you, a decent wood finish. But they're not doing this simple step. The other thing they're really afraid of, and I don't even know how to, I'll show this on the other side here. If you're looking at this line right here and you're looking at it from over here instead of from up here, that line will appear to bend as it goes around the corner. It'll have a bend in it. We don't have the camera at the right angle. We'll get there. So we would tighten all of this checkering up after we've sanded, tighten up the bordering, make all that look right, and then we can go back and do an oil finish. But it'll look right because it'll have been sanded out, recheckered, rebordered, and then finished again, and it'll just look sharp. Because we pushed the acroglass in the joint, this stuff here is still gooey, but the acroglass here is hard as a rock. So that's letting me get back into this. So what I'm going to do here is just take a plane and just start knocking this off. Okay? Because what I want to do is stay even on this plane and stay even on this plane. The very last thing I'm going to do is round it over. Check back here. Yep, that's about right. And what the plane does, I could do this with a rasp, but this makes, I'm cutting, I'm not grinding, I'm not bludgeoning. And it's keeping it flat. It doesn't look flat, you just gotta trust me, it is. There we go. Pretty much, I got a little bit more to go, but as far as being, you know, on the plan side of it, I'm all right. Now we'll roll profile. This is the one where the grain's going to start mattering. It matters whether or not I'm running out or not. So it might not like being cut this way, and we got lucky it does. Okay, so let me get this light out here. I'll show you what we're doing. There we go. Now I'm looking right through this light, but I'm all right. Ridiculously sharp tools allow you to get, right? So, you know, one of the three things you got to know how to do to be a gunsmith is you got to be able to make a chisel ridiculously sharp. And there's metallurgy there, and there's an implication that you understand the woodworking. Okay. So one of the things I don't want to do is drop this edge too much, because I need this to look flat all the way across as we're coming down. So you see we have this much to go here, but I don't have anything in the back to go on because it was missing. So I just need to be careful that I don't screw myself up. So I'm only cutting on the front right now, and I'm taking the plane and I'm rolling it down that way a little bit. Let me see here. Yeah, we're better now. Okay, good. And we keep doing this until we get to the point where we can lay something right across it and have this be the same here and here all the way across. So that's what we're going to do. We're trying to draw that line down until it's straight. Then we'll do the same thing coming down the side, is we'll make sure that as we're coming up the side that we're square all the way around and then it rolls off. And then we have mimicked the original plane. So for right now, I'm looking at this and I'm leaning forward a little bit and I'm a little bit high. So I'll take a little bit off right there and keep coming on in. careful when you overrun, you don't cut this. Okay. So now I'm level, right? You see there's no air underneath it. There's a little bit of a dip right here, but that's not going to kill me because that's all going to go away. But I'm level and I'm about 1/8 of an inch high. So I'm about 1/8 of an inch. I'm just that, right? So a little bit more, but now that I'm level, I know where I'm at here. Checking this way, a little bit high in the back, but I'm down to about a very small amount of air. I'm down to about that much up here underneath the front. Take a little bit more off the back. And this is about as far down as I'm gonna go right now, because I don't want to overshoot this, but I'm damn near the same here. See that little wedge of light right there? That little wedge of light's gonna go away. We're damn close. See, that's where we need to be, and this is where we are. That's where we need to be, and that's where we are. So we're very, very close to getting this. So now I am going to cheat a little bit, and I know I talk about strict plan and profile, but you see that line right there. So I'm going to take this sharp line and I'm going to go ahead and drop it in at a 45 just to get the wood out of the way. As I'm doing that, this strip up on top gets narrower, and then it becomes correspondingly easier to figure out exactly where I got to be. Because I knew I had just a little bit more to come down, and I got to leave enough there to sand. Okay, just a bit there and there. A little bit right there, and a little bit right here. Boom. We're good there. Difference between that and that. And there it is. And I'm going to leave the rest of that to bring in with sandpapers. And now I'm going to check the camera angle here and see what we got in order to do it this way. So hang on a minute. Okay. So now we want to be here, but we're here. So you see the difference? And I know the focus is a little weird, but let me get the light behind it. I'll show you what I mean. There it is. I'm here, right? So we need to take that much off. There, all the way across. There, just about got it. That shuddering noise you're hearing is me actually cutting through the glue, so we know we're getting there. Okay, we want to be there. That's us. So we're on the money this way. We're on the money this way. So now the rest of it is done with files and sandpaper, bringing the curve around and matching the curve to this. And I'm going to go grab a file, and Bruno's going to edit me walking out of the door here. This is one of those files I was talking about that has never touched metal. Files that have touched metal don't cut wood worth a damn anymore. Now, I'm not using a rasp because I don't want to tear the wood fibers. I'm down so close now. We've done such a good job of getting this thing down close that See, it's just combing right off. Now, there's a straight line coming down right over the top of this. And that straight line starts here, and I want it to end up right here. Okay, so I'm gonna roll this up and show you what I'm talking about here. So there's a straight line that we want to start here and end up here. So right now we can see where that line breaks over the edge, right? We can see that it breaks there and it runs down here, and yet our pencil line is up here. So while we're cutting, we don't have to draw a line. All we have to do is allow the light So now the light has drawn our line from there to there. You can just see a little bit of that pencil mark left. And now I know that I've continued this line coming in all the way back. And I've done it without rulers. I've done it without a lot of hate and discontent. And now I know that this is round up in here. So I can just come back in and start knocking the end of this off just to get it out of the way. But I know that no matter what, that line right there is the line that matters. So I just don't bring this up into there. See, like that. So now this is beginning to, there's a rollout right there where the end of the barrel channel comes. And that will run out right here. And what I want is this edge formed over here. And it's doing a pretty good job of it. Let me get that honk down a little bit more. Okay, I'm not making this stuff up, guys. You just let the light draw your lines. You don't have to be slaves to the straight edge when your eyeball, Mark 1, Mod 0, is going to tell you an awful lot about where to go. Now that we're there, this is just going to be a matter of rounding this over until this matches. So we'll just take this in and let's look at it here. Here, right there. There's the line right there. See, now that's beginning to match the contour, and we'll just keep rolling up on it. But the whole time I'm doing this, I'm watching Acroglass goop all over everything. My bench hygiene wasn't very good today. Anyway, we're watching this line right here, and we're watching it. We're just keeping that line straight while we're filing, and it's not waving all over the place. So let me get the light set up here, and I'll show you what I'm really looking at here as we roll under. So you see that line right there, right on top of the glue? That line, and then the line up above it. And what I'm trying to do is make that turn all into one amorphous mass, and bam, I've done it. And that's how you do entire stocks like that. Is you let the light and dark be your delineation. So now that we're done, you see we don't have a line anywhere except right up here on the top. We got a sharp line, and the rest of it is straight but amorphous, and it just comes all the way around, and bam, there you go. We've sanded the fore end out now. I've sanded it all the way out. I've steamed the dents up as far as they're going to come. Now these black impact marks in here, you're not going to be able to get down under those. You would have to take probably 1/8 of an inch of wood off of here, and man, you haven't got 1/8 of an inch of wood down here. In fact, before I am done, I'll probably wind up glass bedding the entire back end of this up against the receiver just to give it 100% contact area, and it's run out there. Don't worry about the mismatch in wood. This is going to disappear because all green is black. When we're done and we've got this all sanded out and we've got it all checkered, this winds up looking like this. Okay, this is what the gun looks like when it's completely done. Now, if we compare this, ooh, what a camera really shows things. See that line right there? I got to go back in and touch that up, which I can do, right? But that deep line right there, that's not going to stand, and I didn't see that with the naked eye, and it disappears when looked at from this direction. So let's go back and take care of it. The point being is we've got this pretty much sanded out and done. And I did that in the intervening 2 days since Bruno was here the last time. All the metal has been done, all the wood's been done, or I mean all the rear end's been done, but I wanted to show the fore end here. All right, here's what happens if you sand while there's still oil on the surface. The sandpaper gets all clogged up. Now I didn't have a choice here because I scraped this down as far as I could go, and this wood is so oil impregnated, and I mean lubricant impregnated, that there wasn't much I could do about it other than just expend the sandpaper. But if you start from scratch on one of these guns, you're going to ruin $20 worth of sandpaper. This has been sanded down to 220, and I know it doesn't look like it, but we're there, and I got most of the bumps out of it, and I've got most of everything taken care of it. All right, so I found that this Chestnut Ridge, this is a very, very good military gun stock stain. And it doesn't take much. It's a spirit stain. And it's just that right color of red. So you see what this starts to look like as you blend this color in, right? But Mark, you're getting it in the checkering pattern. You're right. And I'm going to make a point with this gun. Because while the checkering pattern may very well have been done back here, we're not going to do it on this one. And I'm going to show you what a gun that's been refinished but not recheckered looks like. And it ain't pretty. Okay, we're just going to add this. Now, ordinarily, I'm using a brush because I'm down inside of a completed checkering pattern. I'm going to switch over to just the cotton pad here in order to get on with it. Can you checker after you apply finish? Absolutely. And there are gentlemen out there in the world that are way better at the checkering game than I am, that advocate at least 2 coats of oil stock finish on the stock before you ever even attempt a checker because it tightens up the wood fibers in the pattern. Okay, and I'm going to roll with what guys that are a lot better than I am say about it. So we could go ahead and do this whole thing and then checker it afterwards, which is what's going to happen. Now we're going to let that set for about 2 or 3 minutes, and we're going to tune out here for just a second and let this penetrate the wood, and then we're going to come back and put another coat on it of stain, and then we'll be down to where the other one is, and then we'll talk about where we're going to go from there. In the interim, I put another coat of stain on it with the same pad. I try to use the same pad because there's a lot of overhead cost here to filling this pad up full of stain. The other thing is that I keep the stain in a tray. And the reason why I keep the stain in the tray is that when you knock this bottle over, you've got a fighting chance of getting some of this $35 bottle of stain back. Okay, while we were waiting, this is all set up. And once it sets up, I just go in with some steel wool and polish it. And we want to polish the finish, not the wood, and that's what we're doing here. Now, there's no finish on this yet. This is just stain that's mounted up on the wood here. And what this will do is knock all those fibers off the surface, and you get a, let me see if I can get any of it. No, I'm not getting it. We just polish this. It'll be really obvious. It'll come up to like a sheen. But that's all nice and smooth. Now, I'm going to bring up a Danish oil here. And I'm using a dark color of Danish. Pretty dark. And we're just going to put this on the surface. And this will interact with that red. Whatever color you hit this stock with first is pretty much going to be the predominant color of it throughout its lifespan. It won't matter after this. I can hit this with lights and darks and it won't matter. It's going to be predominantly that nice World War I, World War II kind of red. And this is sort of the color that I like shotguns. Now, this particular gun is staying in the family, so I get to make it whatever color I want to make it. However, I think this slightly red color looks pretty sexy. All right, so that will go back in the tub. Nothing fancy. You can keep this tub of oil open for, you can keep this, there you go. You can keep this tub of oil open for probably a week or two before it will begin to oxidize and it'll polymerize. Until it looks like this. And it'll look like this oozy garbage here I just pulled out of the garbage this morning. This is where this stuff is going. Now, this is when it's really thick and you would never put it on this thick, but boy, when it's thin, it'll start turning into this paste. And then once it's in this paste, then it'll go hard. So this particular jug went over the edge here about 2 days ago, and I went ahead and just bid it adieu. You will note that our repair is beginning to disappear. Our repair is disappearing, and when I get all this, coated down and brushed in, that repair is fundamentally going to disappear from the gun if you're more than about 5 feet away from it. That little fade Bruno just did represents about 10 minutes of shop time. We just let it run, started it all back up again. So that's, you would wipe it off, let this get hard, go eat a bite of sandwich, and then come back, put another layer of oil on it, let it run for about another 10 minutes and let it set. And you're going to be getting awful close to that when it's all done. Now, there are some nicks and bumps in his forend you cannot get rid of. Just like there were nicks and bumps in the back end of this, where you can see where there's some big old pops. There's one right there we tried to get rid of when we were steaming it, right there in the middle. To get out and get that, you got a huge dipsy doodle there. There's another one back here by the butt plate, right there. You can see that. It's part of the gun, man. It's just not going to go away. The other thing I did, you see this little line right here? That's called ghosting. I went ahead and ghosted the cheek piece, just took a checkering tool, ran it around, and that delineates. Now there's still finish up in here, and when I'm all done, that'll all be nice and smooth and will look pretty, but right now it's damn near presentable. Last thing, this was where that line was, right? And I went ahead and chased through that line and get a little bit of stain here. And just run a little bit of stain on that. Right? A little bit of stain on that. That line disappears, you see, and it would put a little bit of the colored go-go juice on it, which I'm sorry I came out of shot here. I'll come back in. And with an oil finish, we can just put a little bit of oil on that, run that oil around like that, let that set in, and then most of what we were doing there, we were able to make go away with the repair. You can still see it, and I'll go back in and clean it up, but my point was I cut down through the oil, through the stain, fixed it, and was able to touch it right back up again, and then we just sit there and rub it out with our hands. You pretty much have right there, you're right back to where you were and you never knew it. Try that with polyurethane, because you can't do that. There's been some confusion in the past about kerosene versus used motor oil, and I'll tell you, they're both functionally interchangeable. However, when I want to soak something overnight in a petroleum-based chemical, kerosene works for me. You can use diesel, you can use used motor oil, you can use diesel, but it's a mess. I just like kerosene the best because I like what it looks like. I like how it finishes out the overall character. But used motor oil, same way. All we're trying to do is set the finish up so that the black oxides that are on the surface stay there, is really what we're looking for. Yeah, diesel's a mess. Never, ever, 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 ever use gasoline. I've said it before, I'll say it again. It'll work, but the problem is explosive at room temperatures. It just forms a vapor layer on the floor. It will find an ignition source, and it will hurt you, so don't do that. Well, there it is. All the pieces, parts to an 8.5, which is really a Belgian FN automatic. At the end of the day, there it is. There are not too many parts to this thing. It's actually a pretty straightforward gun. The way I've got it laid out on the bench is how I recommend you lay out any gun. Lay it out in functional groups. Mag cap, then this is the magazine follower, the friction brake, right? And then we have the parts that go inside the receiver, the shell latch, and then there's the other shell latch. So there's the short and the long shell latch. There's the magazine cutoff and the magazine cutoff spring. Then this is the carrier's spring, but on this gun, that carrier spring mounts in the receiver. Then you have the main parts that go in a receiver. You've got the bolt handle, the shell carrier, and then the rod that goes in there and tightens all that together. Obviously the frame, and then we have the trigger group. So we have the trigger housing, we have the hammer, suicide safety, trigger spring, mainspring, trigger, and disconnector, all located in one spot here. So now we know we pretty much got all the parts to the gun. The bluing on it came out pretty good, considering that this gun was silver when we got it. And what we didn't do is we didn't go in here with a wire wheel and check all that off. We just took the bluing that was there, and I don't know if this camera or this lighting arrangement is doing this any justice about just how dark and gorgeous this barrel turned out. And it was all there, and it was underneath all that patina. There was a variety of no patina to lots of rust all over this gun. It had been run for a long time, and then we just did the maintenance. So we'll go in here and put this whole thing back together again, and then I'm going to put the back end on it that's finished and the fore end on it that hasn't been checkered. And we're going to go outside in broad daylight, and I want to show you what I'm talking about why, even though it's hard to even contemplate, you should start thinking about figuring out how to maybe perhaps get around to considering the possibility of maybe fabricating your own checkering tools, because there aren't any left to buy, unfortunately, and that's a sad state of affairs, but we'll deal with that in another episode. So an FN automatic in 16 gauge from probably 1907-ish, 4-digit serial number. This is an old gun. And I've said in the past, you got to run it with the right ammo. And I don't know where the heck I come up with this paper roll crimp ammo. Ammo loaded during the Truman administration. Are you kidding me? But the ejection ports on these shells are a little bit shorter. And a star crimp shell probably won't come out of this gun. If you're going to run a gun like this, you had better be prepared to do a little bit of hand loading. Now this is number 6s. So these are pheasant loads. God, from when I was a kid and when my dad got this ammo, it was old. So I'd say this is definitely baby boomer ammo, but it ain't Gen X. Okay, so what we did to this gun was we took all that nasty finish off the outside of it, and it was nasty. The gun was white. The barrel had maybe 10% original remaining finish. Ooh boy, dare to dream. If you got a problem with its collectability, make me an offer on it. The problem is when you're looking at it, you don't know what it looked like before. It was refinished with rust bluing techniques. It was refinished with oil finishes. It was done with scrapers. It was done the way it would have been done in the past. I don't even know if this old ass ammo's even gonna work. Nope. Dead as a doorknob. Well, bang! How about that? Anyway, I think this was a successful deal. We're just gonna have to build some ammo for it. And as you start running into these older and older guns, the hobby of making your own ammo rears its ugly head. And on that note, it's been a pleasure and it's been great talking to you guys.